Welcome to the Lounge Lizards podcast. It's so good to have you here. It's a leisure and lifestyle podcast founded on our love of premium cigars, as well as whiskey, travel, food, work, and whatever else we feel like getting into. My name is Gizmo, and tonight I'm joined by Rooster, Pooba, Senator, Pagoda, Grinder, and Bam Bam, a full house of lizards. And our plan is to smoke a cigar with a very special guest, talk about life, and of course, have some laughs. So take this as your 56th official invitation to join us and become a card-carrying lounge lizard. Plan to meet us here once a week. We're going to smoke a Cuban cigar tonight, share our thoughts on it, and give you our formal lizard rating. We welcome on Rob Ayala from Friends of El Habano and Bond Roberts to discuss his history and passion for the hobby, FOH's famous forum, BR's online auction house, the pitfalls of Habanos S.A., and FOH's New World releases, all among a variety of other things for the next 2 hours. So sit back, get your favorite drink, light up a cigar, and enjoy as we smoke the Partagás Lusitanias. A double Corona from Cuba tonight on the pod, the Partagás Lusitanias, 49 ring gauge cigar by 7 5/8 inches. And we have a very special guest with us tonight, Rob Ayala, El Presidente from Friends of El Habano, FOH as it's famously known. Used to be known as Friends of Habanos. We could talk about why that changed, but Friends of El Habano and Bond Roberts, among many other ventures. You're a busy man, Rob.
Guys, fantastic to be on. Thank you so much for the invitation. Busy, yeah. I mean, I've always been someone who gets bored easily. So I see these fantastic opportunities to work with fantastic people on fantastic projects. And at this point in time, I don't see a reason to say no. It's just a lovely way to spend time. He's working on great projects with great people.
He's an optimist, boys.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's great to do something that you love, and it sounds like you love the business, and that's fantastic. So many people go through life, and they're doing something that they love 50%. Now, maybe I'm being presumptuous, assuming that you love the cigar business, but it sounds like you do.
I love the cigar people, and it's a unique set of people. Yeah, I think I was saying it a couple of weeks ago. That cigar people are unique. You don't find it in the wine industry. You don't find it in the whiskey industry. Lovers of the leaf. They love to share. They love to laugh. They love to travel. They love to catch up, and that's key for me. And I think if you don't love people, you have no right to be in the cigar business. Well, I can't see how you could succeed.
Yeah, it's different because I think we would all agree you spend time smoking with people, and that's a conversation, and you're making like this investment in the time because it's about time where you can have a whiskey with someone and be in and out of that conversation in 20 minutes. So different with cigars.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's very different.
All right, let's light this.
We want to smoke.
Let's cut this thing, boys.
Okay, these guys really want to smoke.
See, we're getting on
I
the
think Rob already imbibed.
cold draw on the wrapper. So this came out of ours came out of a 50 cab that I got. It's EBO January 20. Rob, you said yours is 21?
Yeah, SOU July 21. It's a perfect draw on this.
Mine is perfect draw.
Right.
Yeah, mine's perfect too.
Yeah. So I find that maybe 30% of these, 20% of these, I have a draw issue sometimes.
Maybe more.
Yeah, you're going well. Look, isn't draw an interesting subject? You could give the same cigar to 5 different people, and you'll get 5 different interpretations of the draw. But I agree with you. I mean, I prefer a slightly easy draw. Just you've got that Cuban, the typical Cuban draw. You need to pull on the cigar. I'm fine with that. But off.
Yeah, just a touch of tightness.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I'm getting older, but I don't mind it being just a little bit more open than that these days.
Getting a lot of cedar on that cold. The cold draw is delicious on this.
The cold draw is really nice on these.
How's the cold draw, Pagoda?
It
a bit
looks
too
red
late.
hot.
I'm in my own world, man. You guys can keep drawing cold.
The warm draw is pretty good too.
It's excellent. And by the way, this is one of the first ones, which is
Yeah, you've had a bad
Yeah.
luck with draw.
This
So.
is very nice.
All right, boys, let's light this thing. The Partagás Lusitania, famous cigar, comes in a variety of different packaging options. We always talk about the 50 cab. It also comes in a dress box of 25 and a dress box of 10. And again, it's 49 ring gauge by 7 5/8 inches. And I try to smoke one of these every Sunday watching football. That's kind of my move with these cigars.
It's a nice tradition you have.
Yeah, it's not terrible.
Hey Rob, do you prefer a Lucy with age on it, or do you like them fresh?
I think they're very different animals, and to me, I prefer a Lucy with 3 to 5 years on it. That's it. I prefer that over a vintage Lucy. There's that sourdough bread, coffee, paprika mix that you get at that 3 to 5 year mark that it provides a real richness to the cigar. And I can also appreciate a vintage Lucy, but I think it loses some of those characters, which I enjoy. Yeah. And you find that some people absolutely adore vintage cigars. And if you say vintage Monte Cristo number 2s, I prefer a Monte Cristo number 2 at 3 to 5 years again, because I don't want to lose that cocoa aspect to it. I don't want to lose that shortbread aspect to it. So different strokes with different folks. For me, a Lucy at 3 to 5 is perfect.
Another question, Rob. Do you pursue these in a 50 cab or a dress box? Are you kind of agnostic to how they come, or do you have a preference?
I love 50 cabs. I love tobacco on tobacco. I love the aroma of a 50 cab. It's just intoxicating. And maybe it's a cerebral thing, but I do prefer a 50 cab.
You're in good company. I think we have a strong preference for any stick that comes in a 50 cab over a dress box that's crammed in.
Yeah, I find that we talk about it sometimes on the pod, but the 25 count dress boxes, it's almost like the dress boxes are like a quarter of an inch too small, and they stuff them in there, and they almost have like a pseudo kind of box press on them, which I don't even think happens in the 10 count, but it happens with a lot of 25 count boxes.
Yeah.
So
look,
I seek out the 50s myself. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'd love a lot more 50s at this point. At the moment,
you can buy some from Gizmo.
I do have quite a few, Rob. I have 7.
Yeah,
I'm a degenerate, Rob. I'm sorry.
Right now, you're cornering the world market. 50 cats.
Bastard.
So what are you guys getting on the light? Rob mentioned some notes. I think he's right on point.
Yeah, getting some pepper.
A little bit of pepper, yeah. It's very creamy for me.
Yeah, mine's super creamy.
Yeah.
Sourdough is a good note.
The sourdough is a really good note.
Yeah.
It's actually, I've smoked several of these and I've never really picked that out, but it's spot on.
Yeah.
It's really quite good.
Even a broken clock, gentlemen. Even a broken clock. Yeah.
So Rob, I find your, I've told you this when we spoke before, but I find your business fascinating. I find your retail operation fascinating, and the forum, obviously, which is pretty revered in the cigar community. It's been around. How long has it been around now?
We started
20 years.
Forum
Close to it?
yeah, 18 years. It's been around. 2004. So we started the forum. We wanted to see if we could build a business that had a corner store feel or a B&M feel, a local feel, but on a global basis. Yeah, Oz is too small. Australia is way too small to run a great retail operation. We just don't have the clientele. We just don't have the legislative support. The taxation's too high, blah, blah, blah. So we wanted to see if we could do it on a global base. And a forum's a fantastic way of communicating with your client base. And that's how we started. And it's also, forums a very good discipline to have in business. because it forces you to deal with people. It's your front of house. It's, most people, most businesses in our game, their website is their secondary operation. For us, it's our primary operation. So, and being a primary operation, it is your prime focus. So we treat it very differently.
How much is a Lucy in Australia?
Yeah, what are the
You said the
taxes?
taxes are kind of high.
Yeah, what's the tax on the
converting it
typical
to US dollars be $85 for a Lucy.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
Jesus.
So I guess a Cohiba is about 1,000.
Yeah, a Stiglo Sticks is now 107. It'd be 130 US dollars.
That's crazy.
That's a Siglo 1.
Wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Does no one in the Australian government smoke cigars? Why are the taxes so aggressive there?
They went through a period in 2011 when Nicola Roxon was our health minister in the Labor government, and they ramped up taxes at 12.5% per annum plus CPI, and they racked it in for 4.5 years. And before you knew it, we pay in terms of taxation $1,691 a kilogram. So what's that? $1,250 a kilogram. So a box of Lucy 25s, the tax is 900 Aussie, $750 or thereabouts on a box of Lusitanias.
Wow.
So most Aussies will buy their cigars offshore and ship them in, which is completely legal, and hope that their box misses the customs agents on the way in. But even if they get picked up once or twice out of every 4, at least they're averaging down their cost structure.
Right.
I mean, it would be beneficial for the government to lower the taxes so people don't bring in these boxes from offshore.
You'd think so. You'd think so. But we do have politicians who smoke cigars, and I used to supply a lot of them. I cut them all off when they passed this legislation. And
well done.
and of course, then they went to plain packaging, which was nuts. And to have politicians contact you and say, Rob, can you give me a good price in that box of Cohiba Robusto, and can you send in the original packaging? And these are the same bastards who actually passed the plain packaging laws. So I said, no, we don't do politicians. We have a no toss and no wanker policy.
Good for you. Bravo.
We
Bravo.
don't do politicians.
We don't do politicians. And yeah, so but when I asked that direct question, why the taxation? Why the plain packaging? Why the zealous pursuit? Their answer was always the same. There is no votes in tobacco. And
Right. It's all politics. It's not common sense.
No, it's all politics.
Yeah. We know about that here. It's our politicians play politics.
Except here, tobacco spends. We donate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
A lot of disposable income, folks who are smoking these. So
Oh yeah.
they're happy to collect that.
They're happy to collect it. That's for sure. That's for sure.
So Rob, back to your history for a second. So how did you get into the cigar business? Like, what did you do before the cigar business? How'd you get into it? What's that's one part of your story that I don't know.
I'm a banker by training, so I was ex-banking until 1993, almost 1994, commercial property banking. And then we just came out of the recession, and I was heading up a banking division, and we managed to, our bank screwed a client who's one of my best friends these days. And it was the hardest phone call I've ever had to make, is letting him know that we have now reneged on a deal. And then I resigned from banking that same day. And I only had about 8 clients. I mean, it's commercial properties, big dollars, but small number of clients. And another good friend of mine called me that same day, and Manu Bajwani from Singapore, and says, "What are you going to do now?" So I have no idea. So I went and worked for him in Singapore, and we did international trade for a couple of years. He ran a very big business with his family company in electronics, in cotton and manufacturing. Like a lot of Indians in that part of the world, they've done exceptionally well in building multinationals in many industries.
The last name was Bhojwani, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Bosch's. Yeah, Manu Bhojwani. I was just in Singapore a couple of weeks ago. We caught up with him again. Yeah, Bhojwani. He's always been a mentor of mine and a great friend of mine, and I've worked with him for 2 years, partly as a negotiator, in effect, negotiating different projects in different industries. And then we're having a cigar in Crown Casino in Melbourne. We were looking at a polystaple fiber plant down there to supply. He had a factory in Indonesia making Gant clothing. And anyway, looking there, and we're having Siglo 3s. And I said, Manu, I can't do this too much longer. I've got a young son, Ben. I'm spending too much time away on the road. I'm going to have to resign. And he says, what are you going to do? And I said, you know what? Australia's a monopoly at this point in time in terms of cigars, and I've always loved cigars. I said, I'm going to see if I give this a crack. And he said to me, I think I'm a Habanos dealer somewhere in the world. And when someone of Indian origin says that, it means one of his family members is a Habanos dealer somewhere in the world. Yeah. And indeed he was. So we started parallel importing tobacco in 1996 into Australia, cigars. And by 1999, 2000, we were such a pain in the ass that PCC came knocking. They had a new CEO, Abel Gonzalez Ortega, and we had a lovely meeting in Brisbane, and he flew up and we got on well. He saw my operation. He knew where I was getting the cigars from because you could see the tags on them. And he said, he went to dinner. I always remember this dinner. He said, I really like you. He says, I think you're great for the cigar business. I think we could do some business together eventually. But first, I'm going to have to, he always remember, he put his fist together. He said, I'm going to have to crush you. I said, well, that's lovely. I said, how about you do this, Abel? How about you go away and try to crush me for, say, 6 months? And if you don't crush me after 6 months, we'll have dinner in Sydney, but it's your shout, but you make the call. He goes, fine. So they put people on the road. They tried to shut us down. They tried to undercut us on pricing, but their model was all wonky. It was fairly old school. And he gave me a call after 6 months and said, let's get together. So we got together in Sydney, and I've been with PCC ever since. We cut a deal then.
Wow.
Amazing.
So do you have do you have a certain amount of exclusivity, a certain amount of allocation agreed with, as an agreement with them? And how much of Australia, I mean, basically, does PCC have exclusivity in the region? On the island?
PCC are the authorized distributors for the Asia Pacific, and PCC have an operation in Australia. Fantastic people run their operation here. Angelo Giannakopoulos, Brett Hogan, fantastic operators. I got a CEO is Dag Hombo in Hong Kong. I've got excellent relationships with all of them. In terms of volume, yeah, certainly we're the largest. Without going in the numbers, we are the largest. We're one of the largest in the Asia Pacific. In terms of allocation, they just do the best they possibly can, especially today specifically, or this last 2 years effectively. Right. We've been one of the best supplied operators in the world, and that's completely down to the goodwill and the relationships that we've built over that time, the friendships that we have. They understand how important it is for us to have stock, and they just do everything they possibly can to make sure that occurs.
Yeah, and with the loyal customer base and the end user pull through that you're getting, that's great.
And to keep through the through the good times, or when there was plenty of stock, and and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, look, hey, I started as a parallel importer, so all those years ago. But once we got married, I didn't sleep around. Yeah. So I've always been
Right.
I've
Smart man.
always been, and even if we were out of stock on this line and or that line, and we had the opportunity, we never did. So I always gave them.
You stayed
I
loyal.
gave them my word, and I stayed loyal. And there were times you'd think, Jesus, you'd think they'd give us some more stock of this or that, blah blah blah, over those years. But these last 2 years, you come to appreciate how they remember those things, and how loyalty is rewarded, and they have rewarded me for that, and I certainly appreciate it.
Well, it must feel great to have that kind of relationship, and loyalty matters. Hey guys, loyalty matters still.
Yeah. It does.
It pays off.
Listen, the thing that Bam Bam and I just came back from Cuba. The one thing I learned is that the industry is so small. It's
everyone knows everyone else.
Everybody knows everybody else. It's so tiny. So I have to imagine that, of course I would think that it's bigger than it is, but it's really a very tight knit small community of people.
How is your inventory level like currently?
Awful. But it's not just out. I mean, let's go through. Everyone's working on a 2 to 3 week timetable. We used to have everyone. I mean, from PCC, any distributor in the world really doesn't know, or is just relying on the next shipment coming in to top up some shelves, to top up some retail. The next shipment coming in from Habanos. There is no stock supply. Wholesalers used to have, or distributors used to have, they used to a minimum 3 months, ideally 6 months worth of stock. Now it would be 3 to 6 weeks at best.
Yeah. So that makes forecasting a lot of fun.
There is no forecasting. There's begging, right?
Forecasting is not even happening.
Once upon a time, you'd say, "Look, I don't want to take 2,006 of that. I want to take 1,000 of that. I want that one there. No, let's drop that. No, we want to reduce our order to this size there. We want to do this." Now you say, "Whatever you've got, whatever you've got,
I'll take it."
Right? And I think, but the distributors are in the same boat. They're all in the same boat. So, I mean,
why do you think that is, though? I mean, is it more because the demand is higher, or the supply is lower?
Supply wasn't great before COVID. It was good, but it wasn't great. There was still huge holes in the portfolio. I mean, you all saw that. Even back in 2018, 2019, there was huge holes. COVID came. The tourists didn't into Cuba. The factories shut or went into a production cycle where they had to reduce the number of people rolling on the floor. The women weren't working because they were looking after the kids or the elderly. I mean, the schools were shut. So, but at the rest of the world, cigars boomed. People were smoking more from home. They were buying more online. The retailer shelves were slowly being decimated. Then the distributors' warehouses were being decimated, and Habanos wasn't being resupplied. So Habanos got empty. Now you've got production at what we're estimating, and you probably know better than I do. You've just come back from Habano. You reckon production will be about 40% of normal? They can't catch up. There's no catch up here. And that's why you're still seeing, I got a photo last week from Doha, the duty-free at Doha. It's still empty. There's duty-free stores all over the world that are empty. Now, there are some guys who are doing much better than others. I mean, I can see them. They're trying to feed their La Casa de Habanos as best they possibly can, and their top retailers as best they possibly can. But outside of that, it's dog eat dog. And I don't know how they're going to catch up.
So Bam and Gizmo just came back from Cuba. So did you guys notice like the factories like lack of employees.
No,
and,
Great question.
Honestly,
empty tables.
we were expecting to, and Rob, I didn't get to tell you this before we spoke
Yeah, sure.
today, but when we were there, we actually got a really detailed behind the scenes tour of La Corona. And we actually sat with the director of La Corona for about 2 hours and had a cigar with him after the tour. And his claim, and
Who knows if this is true?
Who knows if this is true? I'm assuming his piece of it is.
You may upset Rob by saying this, by the way.
Because he seemed like a really honest, nice guy. I may upset Rob, but he said that in La Corona right now they have 350,000 rolled cigars ready to be packaged. They just do not have the packaging. And he said that they're operating somewhere closer to 80 to 90% of pre-COVID levels.
That's great news.
He also said, and this is the number that's harder to believe, is that there's 1 million rolled cigars on the island that they just don't have the packaging for. Now, I don't know if that's because Cuba doesn't pay their bills, or they can't get the supply.
They can't get it off the island,
or if that's
just not true,
or if it's just not true.
Very possible.
That could be very possible too. But we were walking the floor. There were and we were at La Corona. And then a few days later, we actually did the same thing at El Ejido and got a very behind the scenes tour of El Ejido. And
production was brisk.
Very brisk. Every rolling desk was full. There were no empty seats. So
that's really good.
I don't know if that means anything, but
that's really good.
It was good to see, and it was good to hear.
That's a turnaround in 3 months, which is needed. Because you would have seen the photos 3 months ago of Partagás El Ejido with the chairs on the benches, and just people not there. They need to. What are they? So you're saying they've got 1 million rolled cigars on the island
that they have no packaging for. They can't get the packaging for one reason or another. I don't know if Cuba doesn't have lines of credit, so I'm assuming everything's cash. But they just can't get the packaging to do it. They can't get them out.
Yeah, well, we could use those cigars. We could certainly. No, what did you?
Oh, that is. By the way, that answer, because we're New York guys. That answer is phenomenal.
We could send them well empty
played.
Boxes.
Oh no, that's so well played.
We could use those cigars.
We could use those cigars.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what were they? Did you see anything interesting being rolled outside of the normal D4s, Monty 2s, that Juan Lopez? Did you see anything interesting being rolled? Anything?
A lot of the 109s were being rolled.
Yeah, they were doing the 109s. The I guess the regional. I don't know which one it is. The Ramon has a 109.
Ramon, that's the Ramon.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the Ramon. They were doing a lot of those. The usual stuff.
Pyramid extras they were doing.
Yeah, they were doing a lot of pyramid extras and. What they call the Bahique Saloon at El Ejido. I mean, both of those rooms were full. We were watching them roll.
Oh yeah,
which was obviously very, very cool. They were rolling all the different kinds of Bahique cigars, and who knows if we'll see those anytime soon based on the packaging issues. But maybe they should do what you're doing, Rob, and just bundle it in a nudie and no bands, no boxes, and just ship them out.
I'd be suing.
There you go.
Now that's a New York move.
No,
Rob, I was curious about your comment earlier about the people in the business and the people who not necessarily in the business but smoke cigars. What about smoking cigars have you experienced draws a like set of principled people together, or not even principles, just enjoyment? What about this hobby, this passion brings that kind of people together?
I think I noticed it first in the early days. I mean, people always picture cigar smokers as being CEOs, executives, surgeons, whatever, entrepreneurs. And I found I found all those people, isn't it? That they've always smoked cigars. But what I loved about this hobby was the teachers, the ambos, the ambulance drivers, the carpenters, the woodworkers, the tradies. But I did notice the union officials. But I did notice they're all passionate about what they did. It didn't matter what they did. It's just they seemed to be in that top 10% of what they did. And they did everything with a passion. They spoke with a passion. you could see it in their eyes. You could see when you sat down over a cigar, they could be working in fields you had no idea about. Like you couldn't have a conversation about what they do on a day-to-day basis. But when you sit over a cigar, you're talking to a person that is passionate. I'm not about you guys, but I love talking to people who are passionate about anything. It's what life's. Is there anything really better than a conversation, like a great conversation that's full of heart and full of learning, and that's what got me in this. That's what I loved about cigars and the people who smoke cigars. They're some of the most interesting bastards in the world. Look at Kenny Gargett and those guys. I mean, they're just they're completely off the charts. How many? The cigar world is full of eccentrics and passionistas, and they're all in this beautiful hobby of ours. And it's such a rich tapestry that I think people do themselves a disservice if they don't sort of reach out and spend some time in that environment and meet some of these people.
Yeah, agreed. And it's cigar smokers they're social animals of sorts. You know, they most of them tend to be social animals. And one of the things that Senator and I and that he spoke about so many times is that the cigar is kind of the great equalizer in a room at times, you know. And this is something you've always talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying, Rob, really resonates with me, and I love the passion piece. I think when we've talked about it, this hobby is the only reason that I've been, and I think a number of us in this room, able to meet folks from so many different walks of life and different experiences, different career paths that I would never encounter in my normal bubble of, you know, my career and the type of work that I do and the area I live and the folks that are around me. And so when I mentioned the great equalizer, you know, you just sit down in a cigar lounge and it doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter how much that cigar is in your hand. You bought that cigar because you really enjoy it, and the passion that you have for it, you just have kind of this instant bond or connection with everybody sort of in that room. And sadly, I think just the way society's gone, it's become that much more poignant right now, where we live in a society where everybody's just on their phones, online. I mean, human interaction is like a dying breed at this point.
It's actually vital now more than ever.
It is. And I think this is one of the last few things that exists that force people to really have that dialogue and conversation and, you know, get off the internet and do all the nonsense.
Also, everyone in this, we all met each other here through this hobby.
Yeah. We wouldn't know each other had it not been for this.
The lizards would never have met.
Yeah. And we would not be sitting here with a guy from Australia right now on the podcast.
And to be fair, gents, I will, in my business life, I will never do anything in the future that's been more rewarding than FOH, simply because I get off on seeing how many friendships have been made on that forum over the years, how they travel the world to catch up with each other, how they call each other when they're down, or they lend a hand when someone's fallen. And it doesn't matter whether you're in the States or the UK. And cigar smoking can also be quite a lonely habit, in that if you don't know any cigar smokers, if you cannot get in touch, if you don't have a lounge or you don't have anyone in your immediate social group who shares that hobby, or you may be working on a mine site in Uzbekistan or Mali or somewhere such as that, the ability to hop on FOH or other forums, but FOH is the one I'm familiar with, of course, and to feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, and to share experiences and to provide support. It's, to me, I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of our members. I'm really proud of how we've made, or how they've made, because they're the ones who build it, how they make life better for each other in this hobby.
Yeah, there's a lot of merit in that.
Mm-hmm. Very well said.
And that's also the genesis of why we started this, was to really, it was, you know, the idea was give a guy who like you said, Rob, who maybe is in a remote area or doesn't have access to a lounge like this or a group like that, a group of friends that he can sit around and smoke with. And he's able to sit in his garage and put us on every week. And we always kind of say there's a chair right here that person's sitting in, having the conversation with us.
Yeah. And
it's awesome.
And we do this too, just for context. I mean, we do this because and it dovetails with this conversation. We do this because we like to do the podcast. I mean, this isn't something that we're doing, to monetize to an extreme level or something. We do it because we love to do it. We love to have these conversations, and we love to meet people and talk to people and learn from each other and from guests on the show.
It's an opportunity to disconnect from your world for an hour.
Yeah.
And it's also rewarding.
And there's immense value in that for me.
It's that, Bam. It's disconnecting from the world, but it's also connecting to the world.
True.
In the sense that I think the thing that is always the most fulfilling about this, the amount of listener email, and Rob, I'm sure you get tons of, notes from folks on the forum that have talked about, the impact that that's had on them. And we get that similarly with the podcast of just people talking about how something they heard us talk about or describe that we love made their weekend trip.
It resonates with them.
Their friend or family member
absolutely.
that they went away with. Just stories like that, it really makes it worthwhile.
No, and to be fair, so when I got the invitation to do this, I didn't even hesitate. What you guys are doing needs to be supported. It's so important to be done. And congratulations for doing it. And I wish you every success. But the industry, and I use the term broadly, I actually hate the term industry, but the hobby needs to support each other and promote communication and promote quality broadcasting. So congrats.
Thanks, Ben.
There's nothing better when you get that listener email. I remember this one email we got from a truck driver that he drives long distance, and he's alone in his truck most of the time, and he's driving like 6 hours, 8 hours a day. And the pod really is a great way for him to pass time, while he's smoking a cigar and hopefully not drinking, but just smoking a cigar.
Yeah, hopefully he's not doing the spirit pairing as well.
Let me see what this bourbon tastes like. So it's great to hear that. We look forward to all the emails that we get and, great feedback.
So, Rob, you mentioned quality, and I wanted to talk about something that you've kind of become known for, and everybody loves when they see the stickers on the boxes.
Oh yes.
On your site, on the secondhand sites, the secondhand box will pop up, and there's a red sticker on it, and okay, this is serious. So let's talk about the FOH grading system you came up with. So what was the genesis of that? Obviously, there's really 3 levels of it.
The genesis was pretty simple. Yeah, the genesis was as we grew, people want to say, "What's good at the moment, Rob? What's good at the moment?" And as we grew, you got to put in place systems that work. And because then they'd ask Dee or they'd ask Lisa what was good, what do they recommend? So as I was going through the warehouse, when the warehouse, we had 6 months of stock, you could actually go through master case after master case. And people make way too much of a deal out of this. But effectively, if you're buying...
That's us included, by the way. I want to say that's us included.
Yeah. It's nothing more than if you guys went into Partagás in Havana, or another retail store like Hawthorne, Habanos, anywhere, and they said, okay, you want a box of Monty 2s, and they'll give you how many? 16. There's 22 boxes to a master case of Monty 2s, and you can look through each one of those boxes of Monty 2s, and you can put them in piles. Love these. This is the quality here is this level. The quality here is this level. The quality here is this level, and I really wouldn't buy these here. Right? And that's all we were doing. And we're just grading them based on quality. Now, does that tell you that it's going to be a spectacular stick? No, but you've got a much bloody higher chance of getting a spectacular stick out of these in a general rule than you do out of the ones over here. And it's not a visual, it's about aroma, it's about construction, it's about this in general. And that's all it was. That's dead set all it was. If you're running into, we did nothing more than you would do if you had the opportunity to grade a master case. Which ones would you take home?
All of them.
Yeah. these days I would.
I want them all.
These days I would.
Well, you know what's funny? We did an Upman 2 probably 20 something episodes ago, and it was a Lub 14 box of Upman 2s. And obviously that's a big Pooba thing is Lub 14. Look at him over there. He loves
that's
Lub.
a classic Pooba.
He's
That's
loving-
an absolute classic box cut of Upman 2.
So we had a listener friend of ours out in Denver who found one on Bond Roberts, which we're going to get to in a little bit. Obviously, you're a major role in that, partner in that. But he showed me the pictures of this box that he was bidding on, and he said, "Don't bid on it. I want this box." And son of a bitch, I start looking through the pictures, and there's the red sticker on that Lub 14 box of Upman 2s. Man, I was so depressed that I
Couldn't get them.
couldn't get my hands on that box because I'm a loyal friend, as we discussed.
You are.
I'm a loyal friend. I said I wouldn't bid. I didn't bid, but yeah, I was. I saw that red sticker, man, and I was like, I wish I had it.
Those are the 14
Yeah.
LUB
Yeah.
14 are
Legendary.
absolutely fantastic cigars. Thank God I have a box and a half.
So just for the listener, so we're talking about Rob's grading system. So you have 3 grades on there. So there's PSP, which is the highest grade. You have HQ, and then you have clearance, which is kind of what just normal stock, everyday stock, right?
Now, clearance is no. There's also one other grading called rejected, which we
Did you send back?
No, we'll use those as seconds. We use them in the store. We'll discount them out. We'll do different things such as that. But we let people know in terms of it. This is a price. But there's nothing wrong with clearance. Clearance is great. Clearance is just stock that these days clearance can be everything because we just don't have enough stock to actually go through and grade most of the time. But clearance is what I smoke every day.
Most of the stuff I buy is clearance stuff, but obviously now I know there's you're not getting enough to grade.
No.
Let's say pre-COVID days or pre-supply issue days. What percentage of a master crate or what percentage of cigars was getting a PSP grade?
You know what? If you could pull 3 or 4 boxes of PSP out of a master case, you'd be going really well. As a 22 box master case, a 24, say for a pyramid, you'd be going really, really well. There were times though, those 14 Upman 2s LUB. I mean, you could get 12, 14 PSPs out of that. They were just divine. The TB Ford Younger Petit Coronas from I think 07, if I remember correctly. Again, just what a great run. You have great runs of stock that you get plenty
I
out.
love that cigar.
Yeah, but there are then you go through others, and you may not see a pair in any master case. It just doesn't cut it. Less these days. Quality has improved. Quality has improved.
I was going to say that exactly that. I think the run of cigars from say maybe mid to late 18, 19, 20, 21, I mean, widely
Delicious.
said to be some of the best stuff coming out of Cuba in a very long time. Do you remember a period as strong as this of product coming out?
No.
I know there's not a lot, but what is coming out?
Even 19, which is probably the last full year of a good range of products. I've told many of our members this, that you could pretty much order from anywhere in the world and you're going to get a decent box. In 2019, 2020, 21. The requirement for grading has diminished as the improvement in quality has increased. Now, of course, now that Habanos has gone psycho on pricing, if you're going to spend $600 or $700 on a box of Monte Cristo 2s, then you probably want someone to run their eye over it and make sure that you bring home something that's at the top end of the pyramid. Excuse the pun, but Yeah, go.
Oh, I was just going to ask, can we talk a little bit more about the years? And I asked
I
this
was
question because
Gonna go there too.
I feel like this is a big source of debate. Just
We know
among
where you're
us
going.
lizards in the room.
I know where you're going.
And I say that because there's one school of thought that, aged cigars are always the best cigars, that no matter what stick we're talking about, the more age, the better it gets. There's another school of thought that's sometimes age actually doesn't necessarily do as many favors for certain cigars. And sometimes a younger, cigar with just a few years of age may actually smoke better than that same stick with more age on it. We have this debate amongst ourselves all the time. I'm looking at Rooster in the room.
The connoisseur corner.
At Rooster as a connoisseur with some heavily aged inventory at his humidor. But I asked this, I'm just curious, maybe if we just bite off the last 10 years, it kind of what your perspective is on, how much age is really needed for some of the brands that we smoke a lot of, like Partagás, Upmann, Monty. And then over the last 10 years, what years have really stood out to you as kind of overperforming, let's say, and years that maybe have underperformed that maybe you don't pursue as aggressively? I'm just curious.
That's such a hard question. Until pre-COVID, I'd be inspecting 200,000 cigars a year, of everything. I
want that job.
Oh my gosh.
Are you hiring, Rob?
Not right now.
But you get you get a little bit disillusioned in when you have a bad run of cigars. I don't think it has much to. I don't think it has that much to do with years. It really is about consistency in runs. You've got some great box codes which bring out some superb cigars in a period of time, but you go back in 6 months later and that same box code is producing rubbish in that cigar, right? So, and people don't talk about that. They always remember the 14s, the Upmann 14s, LUBs, but that, and they're great, but you go to the next year in 15s, they weren't as good, and they're still coming out of Upmann. I don't think there is such a thing as a great year. I think the consistency of Habanos production isn't there. It comes down to the factory. It comes down to the factory manager. It comes back to the culture that he puts into that factory while he's there or she's there, and what they're producing. We saw the turnaround in Trinidad in 2018, late 2017, 18. They're made in Pinal del Rio predominantly, and they went through a couple of years of absolute crap. The Reyes, the Coloniales, even the Fundis that were coming out of there were rubbish, and we called it because I see them. I used to see them every week. It was just rubbish.
That was prior to 2018.
Yeah, just for a couple of years, three or 4 years prior, and we were calling them. How do you have a premium cigar that? How do you come out with these paperbark, flaky, thin, tracked, almost green wrappers on them and call them a premium? And then all of a sudden, bang, it changed. It changed almost overnight. And Trinidad production for the last couple of years, since 2018, has been superb. Generally, it's been excellent compared to what they were for the previous 3 years. So what changed? The culture changed. Someone paid attention to it. Changes like that don't occur without a focus and a vision. And I've seen that. I mean, if I remember correctly, the manager at Upmann ran that 2014. I knew quite well. Passionate, absolutely passionate. He was in there. He had everyone talking off the same, reading off the same page, which would say he was brilliant, and what was coming out was superb. Romeo and Juliet went into a hole in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Still haven't come out.
Yeah, geez,
Yeah, they're still in that
still
hole.
in the
I think they're still in the hole.
They had a really nice run, R&J Churchill's in 16, 17, and a nice run of R&J Exhibition 4s. I think they were POUs in 2014. Were just stunning cigars. Still some of the best R&J Exhibition 4s ever produced. And that went for 18 months, that run. Who was in charge of that? We'll never know. We will never know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're saying it's about the runs. It's about who's managing the factory at that time.
It's more, yeah, it's far more micro. It's more
about the
micro.
runs.
It's more micro than people make it out to be. Yeah. People pull about years and this. It really is micro in terms of what's going on internally in that factory. Who's putting, because it's all about attention to detail. It's all about saying no, that's not acceptable. That standard's not acceptable. No, we're not going to accept that leaf or those bales into this blend. You know, it's about someone saying no, and someone getting away from quota and looking at quality and looking at consistency. And unfortunately, pretty much every one of those cigars that had those great runs, it might last 18 months, but it just doesn't continue. I just haven't seen it continue.
There's just too much turnover. It sounds like there's turnover where you don't have
The
consistent
politics,
management.
the turnover. Yeah, and the internal politics of a factory are phenomenal. You know, it makes the bold and the beautiful look like, you know, amateur hour. You have to bring everyone along with you. And, you know, when they were being paid $20 a month, and you have to incentivize them, and you need a charisma, and you need systems internally, because, you know, if you've got 40 rollers in a room, 6 of them are really, you know, in a normal situation, 6 will have their head down, going gangbusters and be passionate, and half of them couldn't really care. It's about, you know, I mean, at least a third of them, their boyfriend broke up with them the last 2 weeks.
Those 6.
The problem, yeah, it's a real mix. Yeah, you know, it was just, to me, it was always dispiriting when you used to go to Laguito or any of the factories, you know, in the early 2000s or late 90s, and find half the workforce trying to sell you cigars in the bathrooms or selling them from the tables, and doing that. And that's how desperate people are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's probably happening right now, isn't it? Still.
Rob, I didn't want to say anything, but it's still happening.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, and it has to, because you know, and this goes all the way through to, I think you had Dan on a couple of weeks ago in terms of the fakes that are going now, and it's almost impossible to stop any of this, the inconsistency, the fakes, etc., while you've got people who can't get by on their wage.
Yep. Plus the inflation and everything else. It's terrible.
And that's
Exactly
Cuba.
right.
That's really is
Like
Cuba.
they kept saying while we were down there, Rob, it's Cuba. It's complicated.
Es complicado.
Yeah. So, boys, we're coming into the second third here of the Lusitania. Speaking of a good run, these cabinets have been fantastic.
This is a great cigar.
It's very, very good. I would say it's medium. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's my second Lucy of all time
Really?
that I've ever
That's
had.
it?
This
Yeah.
is my first Lucy. of
So
all time.
Rob, they keep cigars from me. All right?
Oh boy.
They don't let
Here we go, Rob.
They don't let me
Here we
smoke
go.
the good stuff.
Here we go.
Here's what I'll do, Rob. I'll go, hey, guys, you guys should join FOH and get on 2424. And here's what time 2424 comes up.
So
And you know what? He'll go. Bam Bam
no, I
will
did
go.
that once with
Bam
you.
Bam will go. You know what? Can you just get me a box?
No.
Just get
To
me
be fair,
Yeah,
24 by 24
Rabbit.
is a little complicated.
It's very complicated.
Rob, it's a
Es-
bit. Could you make it a little easier?
It's complicated.
It's a little
it's muy-
complicated.
It's
Muy
just like
complicado.
Cuba. Muy complicado.
Muy
Es muy
complicado.
complicado. Yeah.
Rob, how's
Yeah.
your Lucy?
It's good. It's got some construction issues, yeah. And so in terms of the wrappers splitting, the weather's fine today, so I have no idea why. I mean, if I gave this to Ken, I'd never hear the end of it for a review.
So Ken, by the way, for listeners, Ken, so Rob and Ken Gargett do FOH reviews. You can find them on YouTube. I think you put them up weekly, right? It's a weekly thing, or every other week.
We try, yeah. We
Yeah.
try to put them up weekly.
And they're like,
yeah.
they're like 10 to 12 minutes, and they kind of hit each third of the cigar, and the first 5 minutes they just yell at each other, which is very entertaining.
I'm actually a fan of the. I'm a fan of it. And he doesn't wear shoes. He does not like to wear shoes.
Yeah, what's with the
often.
feet, Rob?
He loves his feet. His feet are all in the shot.
I don't like that.
Sometimes.
I don't like that.
I mentioned that the cigar world is full of eccentrics. Yeah, you have one of the great eccentrics there. Always remember Simon Chase, the great Simon Chase, pulled me aside at the National Hotel once in Havana, and he says, "Come have a cigar," and when you meet one of your heroes, Simon, and it was great. I just spoke to him a couple of times before. It was the first time we actually got together, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't stop doing what you do," because and what he meant by that was, okay, smoke cigars in bare feet, have a laugh, tell Habanos they're up themselves, do all of that, and call it like it is, because the cigar world needs a little bit more of that. It did at the time. I think there's plenty of it now, but yeah. I was interested, guys. You said it's a medium-bodied few. Is there really a Cuban cigar today that is full-bodied?
Oh, that's a good question.
Maybe some of the Maduros.
The Maduro #1.
Yeah, the Partagás
Partagás
Maduros.
Maduro
Maybe
1
touch
for-
on that.
Yep.
Very few.
What about? I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it's like full, but like
Maybe
medium
the
full is like
Partagás 898. to
898.
me would
Oh
be
yeah,
like,
the
Yeah, that
898's
gets full.
full.
medium full.
I'd like to try some. If you ever saw a 22 box, I haven't seen a 22 box yet. I know they have been sold. There's not too many of them around. But even the Mag 46, which is always found relatively full-bodied, I find them coming back towards that medium level. So I'm intrigued
true.
to see
I agree.
where
It's
we're
true.
heading.
I agree with
Where
that.
we're heading.
The flavor profile of it is a full flavor, but medium bodied.
What
me.
about?
What about the Monte
Right.
Cristo? What about the what about the Linea?
Oh, well, yeah.
Those had some.
They're
I
rich.
tried to remember
Yeah.
back if
They're
they
ri-
really were. They yeah, but
They're rich. That's a good.
they were
that's a good way
rich.
of
They were
putting it.
full bodied, but they weren't strength like
No.
an 898.
I think a
I'd
medium,
say medium
full.
full at most.
Medium
Yeah.
full.
Nothing, not like a Nicaraguan full.
We call them full. We call them rich. We call them full-flavored.
Full
Yeah,
bodied,
yeah,
yeah.
rich thing,
Full bodied.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
What about BBF?
Definitely
I don't
not.
find
No.
that cigar
No.
as strong as everyone says it is.
No, it's
No.
not strong.
It's flavorful, but it's not strong.
It's a medium cigar.
The
Yeah.
Petite Corona's a whopper.
Yeah, that can get.
Oh, so I bought a beautiful box with Gizmo's help on FOH of 2016 Bolivar Petite Coronas. Outstanding.
That's strong. That's maybe one of the. All right. So
No,
I want Rob's opinion. Is the Bolivar Petite Corona
It's a good cigar.
one of the stronger Cuban cigars, nicotine wise, strength wise?
yeah, one of my favorite cigars, and certainly.
Now we're
one of the
talking.
fullest
So
bodied
we're
cigars.
coming
Yeah.
to the segment now
Delicious.
where Rob is going to settle
is.
all of our arguments.
Yes.
No, he's
Great.
settling this argument because
great.
because I think the Bolivar Petite Corona packs a wallop.
I think so
agree.
too.
The only thing I find though is with age, that punch that it packs
mellows
young
out.
really mellows out and is more my speed.
Yeah.
But young, it can kick you around at the last third of that cigar.
It does. Bolivar Corona Jr. is another, yeah. At young, it can really knock you around. And look, and with regards to the Bolivar Bellicoso Finos, which is one of my favorite cigars, I smoke a lot of them. I also find they've gone from medium full to back to almost medium, just over medium body. But I question myself on that because maybe, as you get older, you lose taste buds. Your taste changes too. Yeah, your taste changes. So is it a physiological thing, or is it a different tobaccos? It wouldn't be a blend change because they don't like doing blend changes, but different tobaccos, different treatment of those tobaccos. I'm not quite sure, but I'm finding BBF to be nowhere near as strong as what they were back, in the late 2000s. In the 1990s, they were absolute.
So, Rob, what
They
are
used
your
to give an
top
absolute
five
punch.
cigars right?
To smoke on a regular
like in your
rotation.
daily, like your weekly rotation.
Weekly rotation. I love BBF. I'm old school, yeah. BBF, Juan Lopez selection number 2, Punch. I think the Punch are exceptional.
Oh,
right now.
Love the punch.
That's
punch.
controversial in this
That
room,
is,
Rob.
Yeah.
Very controversial.
Puba,
Love
pipe
the
down.
punch.
Pipe down,
Okay, I
Puba.
want to hear his list.
They went through a long period, I'd say a decade, of being so to pretty ordinary, which I wouldn't buy a box. But 218, 219 forward on the punch. Geez, they're hard to beat. I love those cigars. I love those cigars. But again, it's been a run. And that run doesn't seem to have stopped, although there's not too many around at the moment. So yeah, Bolivar Petit Corona, Punch, Juan Lopez selection number 2, BBF. D4s have been superb. Yeah,
There you go.
D4s
Yeah.
have been
They've
excellent.
been amazing.
At the same time. Yeah, consistent. You want a consistently good cigar.
We've talked about ad nauseum how that is one of the most consistent Cuban cigars made.
Yeah.
The D4.
And it's tasting really good,
It
fresh.
is, yeah.
Even the 21 box, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, they're great. So, Rob, one of our favorite topics, I'm sure it's one of yours as well, because you're in it every day, are the fine people at Habanos and their decision-making process and how they come to...
Process is being very generous.
Yeah, I'm being very generous with that word. But, I mean, they did this crazy price increase given the circumstances. There's another one coming in January. We just saw, on most of the lines except, Trinidad and Cohiba, another increase coming. I saw, for example, RAS, which I know be in this room. We've gotten 8 or 10 of those cabinets from you this year, and they are gone. And those are going up like 14 or 15% apparently. What is going on over at Habanos, Rob? Give us the inside scoop.
There is no inside scoop because distributors are scratching their heads. Retailers are pulling their hair out. All over the world. And I feel sorry for those who've got serious bricks and mortar enterprises and heavy investments, because it's very hard for them to pivot. However, I can only guess that they've sat down and done the numbers and worked out that they won't be able to get back to serious full production in terms of they won't get back to full production for a number of years for one reason or another. And until they start seeing stock piling up on shelves around the world, maybe that's when they'll work out they've got the balance right, or they believe they've got the balance right. Is it greed or is it need? And I suspect it's somewhere between the two. They've got to perform with the joint venture. They need the cash, but at the same time, what are they producing? 40% of their portfolio? 45% of their portfolio? They've got to produce their portfolio. And the problem with one of the issues with Habanos is that there is no transparency whatsoever. They don't tell anyone anything. They don't tell the distributors anything. It's just they make these grand announcements. They launch these beautiful new cigars, and no one sees them for 2 years. Or they do a little batch that comes out, and then no one sees them for 2 years, or maybe ever again. In fact, there are some cigars that have never been released that they've announced. So, you, in the end, if you're in the business, you've worked out that you're dealing with a dysfunctional operation that's got inherent issues. And if you're waiting for the next order to come through as a Habanos retailer without doing anything else, then you're in serious trouble. You need to have pivoted, and you can see it now. You got the customer Habanos trying to sell non-Cubans and get non-Cuban distributorships and trying to get some non-Cubans in. You've got Cuban Habanos distributors. Dortmund was the best one. Dortmund. You got Habanos distributors chasing down NC non-Cuban suppliers for distributorships left, right, and centre. Of course, it doesn't help too much for them because a lot of those major non-Cuban brands and smaller ones haven't got the excess capacity to supply Europe or Asia to meet that Habano shortfall, and they won't have it for years to come. The US is still booming as a cigar market. It's going exceptionally well.
So you're saying are you saying that are you saying that the overall European market is just short, generally speaking?
Short. Yeah. I've never seen. If you look at the Spanish market, take the Spanish market, you'll find in most of the stores there at the moment, you'll find some Monty 4s, you'll find Vega Fina, which is distributed by Tabacalera there. You'll find Jose Piedras, and you'll find bugger all else. Except last month, every store had Arturo Fuente.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Right?
That's interesting. Now is Asia, is it not short but fat with demand, therefore fat?
Yeah, everyone's fat with demand. Asia's exceptionally short of cigars. No different to Europe. No one's got enough. No one's got. You're selling the same stuff every week, every other week. If you get a specialty order comes through, even if you're a London High Street, yeah. So if you're a London High Street retailer, and they launch this brand new cigar, it's come out, your allocation will be 3 to 4 boxes. Right? There's just no depth to the volume. And that's why you're saying for 1 million cigars ready to go. That's all fine and dandy. But if they're Monty 2s, D4s, and then they've been in regular supply now for the last 2 years. Well, mind you, some major net retailers who are mates of mine, they were out of Monty 2s and D4s for a significant period of time. So it works.
Yeah. So like Sauter when they get in a limitada in, they're not having a big party and getting limitadas and having a release party in a retail setting in London.
Yeah, because it takes away from the launch if you have to cut them in half to spread them around.
Right.
There's
nothing to do. Yeah, you've got nothing to. That's what I'm saying.
The new EL half Corona.
The new EL half Corona. Like, this is great.
Oh my
God! It's a disaster.
Yeah, it is the greatest smoke and mirrors trick in terms of quantity. I love these releases. Yeah, it is one of the great tricks. I mean, not since Jesus and the loaves and fishes has this gone on.
Yeah, well, the best is when they say they're going to do an EL and we're only making 13,000 boxes, and then all of a sudden 26,000 flow onto the market.
Yeah, well, we love those days. Oh, great. So we love that. But I love it, where they did the Trinidad Robusto Extra travel humidor, which is a beautiful travel humidor, and they're going to do 10,000 of those. Well, if they did 1,500, I'd be surprised. And that's now that long ago. Everyone's now forgotten about it, so they just move on. This classic, the limited edition Romeo and Julieta, number 2. I mean, really. I mean, I think Europe had them for about 6 weeks, and they were gone. They were finished, and there's no depth in terms of supply in specialties, if you see them at all.
So you talked about needing to have other enterprises, and obviously you're an entrepreneur, Rob. Bond Roberts was a pretty revolutionary idea as far as being an auction house. And I know you and I spoke about this. There's plenty of other auction houses, but really one that was accessible by anyone in the world, and you can buy and sell, Cuban cigars from anyone in any market. For me, I know Rooster certainly bought a lot on there over the years, and so have I. But that really transformed being able to transact safely in, secondhand aged product. So how did that come together for you guys?
Rob Fox and I have always wanted to do business together because we like each other. We're great mates, and we wanted an avenue we can do some business together. and it, it was just nice for both of us to do something outside, well, for me specifically, to do something outside of Habanos. Imagine having a business in Cuban cigars where you actually don't have to invite Habanos to the party, which was really nice for us. So we've both got great client bases. It took us 2 years to put it together. We had to put the team together. Andy Ryan, obviously, my son Ben's involved in it as well, and now we've got 2 other staff who've come in. Just getting the systems in place, and I love the fact that we launched. Of course, we're just about to launch Bond Roberts, and then COVID hit, and we said, "Oh Jesus!" So we launched in April 2020, which is at the beginning of the big COVID shutdown. So we thought no one's going to be able to ship cigars, or no one's going to want to buy cigars. We didn't know there was the biggest boom in cigars since Cigar Aficionado magazine came out, and so Bond Roberts went quite ballistic quite quickly, and I think we've just sold our 10,000th box on Bond Roberts this month. So 10,000 just over 2 years. So 10,000 boxes have been sold on BR, and it's been remarkably clean in terms of I expected we'd have a lot more issues in terms of our dispute resolution mechanisms, etc. But in 10,000 boxes, we would have had about 50, 55 disputes in that period of time. And condition that's arrived, and disputes can be for various things. Again, we talked about that cigar community. I mean, sellers have to be vetted, sellers have to be approved. And most sellers are good, decent people who go above and beyond in terms of the way they declare, the packaging they put together, how they ship a box, etc. So it's worked quite well.
So how do you guys deal with? I know we talked ad nauseum a few weeks ago with Dan about those fake boxes coming up, but how do you guys deal with people trying to list fake stuff on Bond Roberts? Obviously, some of the stuff is so obviously fake that you guys. But let's talk the more sophisticated fakes. I mean, how do you guys deal with that? And what's your process?
Process is every box gets vetted before it gets put up. Yeah, as best you can vet them. We've been caught out. When I say been caught out, we've discovered. I think we've had 2 or 3 boxes of fakes in that 10,000. They've gone through the process, and which is, something's going to slip through. Yeah, eventually. One was a box of Phoenicia releases. The bands didn't look quite right when the buyer got them, and we went straight to Phoenicia. They clarified it for us. The seller didn't know, and this is a classic. The seller actually bought those in good faith from a private US collector. He's in the US. He didn't know, and the irregularity, you wouldn't have picked it up unless you really were into that cigar, unless you were a distributor. So we reversed that transaction. There's the recent box of Coros that had the same issue that Dan purported, or that Dan has been discussing and been investigating with Greg. In terms of that, we bought that box and we've taken it back to Europe. It's been magnified, it's been photographed, it's been analyzed, and it's currently in Cuba being assessed. So we have, because we also want to know what's going on. We want some definitive answers in terms of that issue. And that issue has changed our policies, which comes out in January, in terms of when listing boxes from 21 on or 2021 on, that you're going to require black lights photographs in terms of that. And guys, I can tell you, in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, there'll be another issue that'll come through as the fakers get better at it, and we're just going to try to stay ahead of it and do the best we possibly can. But in terms of authenticity on BR, well, you guys spent some time with Andy Ryan, and you haven't met Ben, but both of them are in terms of being some of the best guys in the world to identify these issues. We have them, and we do reject a lot of boxes, not because they definitively fake, but they just don't meet the criteria. There's not enough. There's enough questions being raised, and Cuba, being Cuba, doesn't cut it. Yeah, doesn't cut it on that. So when a dispute is raised, it goes through our dispute resolution room. It gets raised, and it goes to the following. The evidence comes through in photographs from both sides, photograph and evidence from both parties. And if they can't sort it out themselves, it goes to our board meeting. We have a board meeting every Tuesday, and it gets raised and discussed at the board meeting, and we look at it, and we go through the evidence there, and we make a determination on it. Not every buyer is correct, by the way, and we communicate with them in terms of, yeah, we believe this transaction should be reversed, or we think that your expectations are slightly slightly overblown for the following reasons. We go bang, 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 bang.
And not every seller, to your point before, not every seller is has bad intentions if a very, very, very good counterfeit box happened to slip by him.
Yeah, these are good people. So we actually haven't come across a seller on the platform who's gone out intentionally to sell fake cigars. They've been weeded out at the seller period. Yeah, where are you buying your cigars from? Who's your industry contacts? What are you doing here? Your first boxes are really heavily supervised. How do you handle those transactions? What's your correspondence like? Did it get delivered on time? All that gets assessed. All that gets assessed. Yeah, and of course, once you've got 20, 30, 40 transactions up, or 30, there's probably less scrutiny on you because you've proven yourself there. Now, the guys who have been caught out, and 2 of the 3 I know very, very well, are really good people who just themselves got caught in that process. Now, does the buyer have to suffer that? No, of course not. We look at the situation, we address the issue, we change our policies, we make sure the buyer or the seller understands what's going on. In both cases, the seller has gone back to his original buyer or his original seller and got his money back.
Yeah, and gotten to the root cause. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. And in the end, we all learn something. All parties learn something, and we change our policy so it doesn't occur again, or we minimize the chances that it occurs again.
So, in addition to BR, you guys have also launched. FOH has launched a few years ago. Launched the Nudies, which was a non-Cuban blend that you put together with Hamlet, right? Hamlet.
I've known Hamlet since he was 23 years of age. Yeah, and we've always been very close mates. I wanted to. I knew very little about non-Cuban tobacco and non-Cuban cigars. And Hamlet went to the United States, worked for Rocky, and Rocky's been great for Hamlet. We had our first Nudies cigar blended by Hamlet, but through the Rocky operation in Nicaragua, and I loved it. Yeah, and the second one's better than the first, and we're just going. But that's our Nudies. So Nudies is very simple. Nudies is no box, no bands, no bullshit. Just cigars that Hamlet and I enjoy in sizes that are difficult to obtain at a decent price point. You can smoke them every day. Before you guys were turning up, I was doing a Carlotta, yeah. So I love that process. I love that process of blending. I love that process of discovering, and we love thin gauge cigar because you can't get a thin gauge cigar on a regular basis outside of a Port Larignaga Monte Carlo out of Cuba at the moment. So we wanted Carlottas, we wanted Lanceros, and we wanted them at a price point that you could smoke them every day. And we achieved that. So our next cigar, but we couldn't, for goodness sake, we just couldn't get a 50 plus ring gauge to work. it with a non-Cuban blend. We couldn't. I know other manufacturers have been able to, but we couldn't until recently. And we've just about. I'm actually flying out 2 weeks' time to sign off it. Actually, Foxy's flying out as well to sign off on some new blends for 2023. And we've actually got a Carnazo, which is sweet and it's glorious. And there's no pepper bite to it. And that's taken 4 years to get to that point, to be able to blend that cigar. That makes a Cuban cigar lover want that cigar. But I want to bring a Carnazo cigar that's a 92, 93 point cigar every goddamn time. And I want to do it under $12 a cigar. Yeah. And that's what we'll be doing. Because that's what, we started before about talking about how I started before about how I love the fact that teachers and taxi drivers and guys like that, my favorite clients, whenever the clients used to come in and buy a box of Coro every week or a box of Romeo and Juliet at Churchill's every week, there's plenty of those guys. My favorite clients was the teacher or the taxi driver who used to come in and buy 2 Monty 4s and 1 Cohiba Robusto, and that was going to be a great week.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's what a cigar smoker is. That is someone who loves smoking cigars. That's someone who doesn't care about pretense. He just loves, that's his time. He's earned that right. And both Habby and I would love to produce a line of cigars. When I blend these, I still have Marty and those guys in the back of my head. I want to blend great cigars at a cheap price point, or inexpensive price point, that people can smoke them on a regular basis, that are as best that we can make. That's what Nudies is.
And are you looking to are you going to distribute those and retail those on Bon Roberts, on FOH?
No, that's just
locally.
FOH. That's just FOH. That's Hammy's and my little enterprise that we love, because there may be cigars there that we don't want to blend a cigar that meets the market's needs or meets the market's requirements. We don't want to blend to a whiteboard, and a lot of blending is to a whiteboard, by the way. So the draw's got to be like this. It's got to be kind of a bit more tight. It's got to have this amount of pepper, this amount of sweetness. It's got to be this sort of body. No, if we both love it, that's what we're putting out there. And if you don't like it, buy it. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. And that's the way we'd like to do our Nudies program. Nudies programming only needs to satisfy 2 people, and that's myself. And
go with your gut. Go with your gut.
Go with the gut.
And I love the sizes you're making too. I love the sizes you're making. That
I love the sizes.
To have a Lancero, under 15, under $12. I mean, it's just it's great because they're just so infrequent. We talk about that all the time on the podcast. Lonsdales, Lanceros, those thinner cigars. We love those cigars.
We love Lonsdales.
Yeah, I love Lonsdales. And to be fair, there are certain times that we started with Lonsdales and a Carlotta, or 38 gauges and 36s, because if you can make that work, if you can make that work in an NC, in a Dominican or a Honduran or a Nicaraguan, you're doing pretty well. Now, mind you, there's been a lot of really good ones this last 3 or 4 years that have come out. It's not as difficult as it used to be, because people, somehow the penny dropped. You don't have to put Ligero in them. Yeah, you can just use very good Viso and get some really good cigars out of them. Now getting to, okay, that's all fine, but you can't play with a 7-iron the entire round of golf either. So we want to make a Carnazo, and I tell you what, this is as close to a Connie B Sigley 6 that I reckon I've had anywhere in a non-Cuban world. So, and that's what we're trying to bring to market.
We would love to try that cigar.
Yeah, I'd love to send some through to you guys. Yeah, but this is so good that we're so excited about this blend that both Rob Fox and I have dropped all tools and are flying in 2 weeks' time.
Wow,
that's how excited we're about this blend.
Wow, that's a big deal.
We weren't going to do it till next week. Yeah, guys, let's organize some for you. I'd love to do it.
Awesome.
So that's what
you notice what's happening. Bam Bam is pointing to me.
Book it
to figure out how to get these cigars.
Book
Just going back to our earlier point.
Well, they're all out of Miami, so it's easy.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So So another thing on Hamlet, just really quick. So it's pretty well known in the industry now. A lot of rumors were happening, but it's kind of out there now that Hamlet, that he is now, I guess, working with you and the Foxes exclusively, or I guess as a consultant, correct? And there's there's even more to come.
Yeah, so we asked Hamlet to assist us with the launch of the Bond Roberts line of cigars, which will be coming out next year, and we're working with, and it'll be announced next year. We're working with one of the great growers in the world. We're working with some superb tobacco, and again, we want to be in a position to produce a cigar and then a line of cigars that meets the needs, that really resonates with Cuban cigar lovers and non-Cuban cigar lovers. Rich, deep, minimal pepper, sweet, just gorgeous, and that's what we're trying to do, and I think we've nailed it. And so BR will come out, and that'll be again, that's a different line of cigars, and that'll be distributed in Europe. They'll be distributed throughout Asia, and Ravi is going to be one of our major distribution points.
That's
Cigars
for that.
Habanos.
So it's COH, yeah. So if you guys didn't know, Ravs and I are very close mates. We go back a long way. I mean, for two guys who we both started in 1996, yeah. So we've competed together all these years. We really, I think we really respect each other. We certainly enjoy hanging out together. We've shared enough hangovers together and long lunches. But he's one of the really decent people that I know. So he'll be doing our BR international distribution as well. So that's and of course, I mean, we talked about broken clocks, and had before. We had all this planned before the Habanos blow. We had all this planned before all this went through. Bond Roberts was planned before Habanos sort of started falling apart in terms of production, etc. And it's just an excellent time for us to do it. And from a retailer's perspective, I never want to be in the position to have to rely on Habanos ever again. And we've earned the right. We certainly have the distribution methods. We certainly have the knowledge and the experience and the right people in place to position ourselves where we don't need to be. Mind you, I'll always sell Habanos. Don't get me wrong. I love Cuban cigars.
That's what we always say too. We'll shit all over Habanos and then we'll say we love Habanos.
Yeah.
Let's order some more cigars.
What is your favorite non-Cuban cigar?
The video just paused.
No, I was going to say I've had, because I was in Miami for 2 weeks in May this year, and all I smoked was non-Cuban cigars, and there was so many really, really good ones. But it's still my favorite non-Cuban cigar, and that sounds silly, is still the Padron 1964 Principi.
Wow.
A man after our own heart.
Yes, that's a
and you talk about rich cigars.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it is so rich, and I know it's relatively one-dimensional, but the dimension is so brilliant, and you put it in a little format. What more could you want out of a cigar than that?
Yep.
Now you put that in a Toro format, and you wouldn't be able to maintain the intensity. Or if you tried, you'd end up with a cigar that's a one-trick pony, but way too big. The way they've just blended that Principi, and it delivers every time. It is it's one of the great, was it Perla half Corona in the world? And I just think that's just a masterpiece of blending for that.
Well, it's music to our ears in this room because we agree.
Yeah, we're huge Padron
Yeah.
guys here.
Yeah.
Huge Padron guys.
Yeah.
And we smoke a lot of 64 line, the Exclusivo, the Diplomaticos, the Churchill. The one that we're on right now that you should try,
The Monarca.
the Monarca, is
Yeah? Right,
stunning. What is that?
It's
a Lonsdale.
It's a Lonsdale.
Unbelievable. Yeah, fantastic cigar.
Monaco. Okay, it's on my list.
64
Maduro.
Maduro.
Yeah. 64
So,
Monaco. Yeah.
So with the Bond Roberts cigar line, Rob, is that kind of where you're kind of putting it price wise, competing with those kind of cigars like Padron and Davidoff and whatnot, or no?
I don't think we've made that decision at this point. You know, pricing. Look, you know, we want it to be, again, something that people will buy because they smoke it as a regular cigar. I want no part, really don't want any part of going after a market that's not part of my own personality, which is, I don't want to produce a $35, $45, $50 cigar. It's not in my world. Mind you, in 3 years' time I'd change that mind. But right now, it's not me. Can we just get back to making cigars and delivering cigars that people can smoke every day without checking their bank balance? Because what's going on at the moment is for me in the Habanos world is relatively sickening, and because I've seen too many friends being forced out of the market, being forced out of the hobby, and they don't want to leave. They've just been told that and the way they feel, they've been told that they're not good enough or they don't earn enough to smoke a Cuban cigar. And you know what? That's gut wrenching because it's not what I'm about.
Do you see them shifting more toward New World cigars?
They're being forced to shift to New World cigars. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It gives them and I say, look, hey, the obstacle is the way. Yeah, this gives them an opportunity to go and explore something they wouldn't normally have explored. So, glass half full, take it as a whole new learning experience, and they'll find things that they love. And I really do hope that they fall in love with a whole range of non-Cuban cigars, and it comes back to bite HSA on the ass.
The shortage compounds that whole problem with people, with cigar smokers being priced out of the hobby, because there's those kind of run of the mill, whatever it is. If you go deep into the Monte Cristo line where there's not as much demand, or into the portfolio brands on the lower end of the catalog, those aren't available. So it's not even like you can downgrade your cigar, your Cuban game to a lower portfolio brand level smoke. Those aren't even that available.
No.
So it compounds it. It's like there's a price increase, but it's price increases on the most popular stuff. And the cheaper stuff is there, but some of it's not even being produced. Like a Swa Supreme was an affordable cigar at one time. It's not anymore.
It's very much akin to of walking into a party, into a door, and no one wants to talk to you. Yeah. And so you're wandering around, and to be fair, no one's giving you the time of day. You walk out of that door, and it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And
so I have a quick comment, glass half full, and I just want to pose a counter argument here to the pricing thing. Now, not talking about Cohiba and Trinidad, which obviously they're so ridiculous. But to me, if I'm paying, let's say $15, let's just say, because it's easy, for a D4.
Yep.
That is still in line, pretty close to in line with any of the other quality Robustos that I'm able to get, Cuban or not. And for $15, that hour that cigar is giving me, that enjoyment, I don't think that that's too crazy a price for that cigar. So I think that in some ways the price increases are in line with maybe the value that I get out of those cigars. Maybe I'm different. Certainly it was a jolt, the kind of increases that they did in such a short time. But I mean, am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy. I think some of the price increases, to your point, meet the value that they provide. The D4 is a great example of that. The thing I think that becomes problematic is kind of even the perception. I think Rob was talking about the taste that this leaves in people's mouth. I think one of the things that our listeners tell us surprises them. There's this perception that Cuban cigars, even before these price increases, are really expensive and hard to get. And there's this high barrier to entry to even getting into enjoying Habanos. And I worry not even as much about the person who's forced out right now by these price increases, but the thing that breaks my heart even more is the young cigar smoker that's trying to find their way and is never even going to give a Habanos a shot because they see some of these prices and they just assume that as a category, as a whole, it's just so inaccessible that it's not worth. I don't want to spend $20 on a cigar that I have no idea whether I'm going to like or not, but that they feel more comfortable spending $10 or $12 on a cigar to figure out whether they like or not. So for me, the perception that this creates, I think in the long run is going to spell real problems when you think about like the next generation of cigar smokers that may never give this the same try. Where you think about when we all had our first Cuban cigar, I mean, we were able to spend $10 to get a D4. The stakes were so low, whether we liked it or not, we weren't worried about the outcome. I think, years from now, someone that's got to spend $20 to just get their foot wet in the Cuban market, that's going to really deter a lot of people. That's what kills me.
It's a lot, and the timing before the price increase allowed us all here to stock up our cabinets, and it was a great advantage. But to your point, what are the new guys going to do? What options do they have? They're going to go New World or Rob's new cigar line.
I think it's also
or others,
or others. Yeah,
I think it's also fairly regional though, because the elasticity, I think, for the price increase in North America of Cuban cigars, there is some elasticity. There's the people that are smoking Cuban cigars, to Gizmo's point, are probably going to be okay with an extra $1 or $2 that they're paying for that Cuban cigar. We also have the wonderful New World market here for a lot of those people, a lot of those teachers and taxi drivers. That perception is already there. So they're smoking New World cigars out of the Dominican, out of Nicaragua, out of Honduras, and they're loving them, and they'll continue to try New World cigars and enjoy them, and maybe they'll have a Cuban here or there, but the price elasticity in North America, I think, is there, whereas in somewhere like Asia or Europe, you're kind of mostly smoking Cuban cigars. So there, it's the capacity is the market really is smaller because you're only focused on that one kind of Habanos portfolio. So yeah, you're immediately priced out of the market. You don't have as much access.
And that goes to Rob's point that he made earlier, where the European market is shrinking or truncating, right? Because of this.
Yeah, and imagine if the U.S., the embargo ends and they start supplying to the U.S.
It'll never end.
I mean,
it's never ending.
I hope it ends one day.
Yeah,
Rob, we just threw a lot at you.
No, that's all right. There's nothing, first of all, there's nothing wrong with the $16 D4, because I think that's probably where it should have been priced all along. What's wrong is how you communicate with your client base, and to change that over 35 days or 45 days was a disgrace. I mean, I don't care how you turn it upside down; it was a disgrace. It in terms of, you run a marketing campaign for a year, an education campaign. Let's become politicians. It's not a marketing campaign; it's an education campaign for a year. And you say that, look, it's one of the great cigars in the world. Here is, in terms of the echelon of cigars as a Robusto, it is in line with the top end, or better than the top end Olivo. It's in line with very good Padrones, etc. There, we're going to call it a $16 cigar. But you go knock the price up 20-odd%, 25%, and then you come back. What is it? That was May, and you come back 5 months later and tell the world you're going to knock it up again, what, another 10, 15% in January?
Yep.
Then the only impression you're giving is an industry in disarray or a company in disarray. You're not giving any other impression. There's no education. There's no discussion points here, and that's concerning. In terms of when are they going to stop? Does that mean that, like, generally their price increases come in May every year? So does that mean there's another price increase in May?
Oh, God.
What is there? What is?
I mean, they're going to raise the price twice a year.
This is just insanity.
So, it is. So basically, they had the marketing meeting, the distributor marketing meeting in June. There was no discussion of a January price increase, right? So, and of course, they normally don't discuss price increases, or distributors don't discuss it with retailers, because what do retailers do? They go and raid everything they can possibly get up front to beat the price. But these days you can't do that anyway, because there's enough stock that they don't have the stock to give it to you. So, yeah, my biggest issue is just a lack of transparency, a lack of direction. I don't know. What do I tell so we have a B&M as well. Yes, not just online. We have a B&M locally. So what do you tell your guys who come in on the 15th of January and their D4's just got up another $3? Mate, how much abuse can you take as a Cuban cigar lover devotee? You know, you're forcing a lot of these people to go out and look at other things. Mind you, look, 30% of our client base couldn't care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just buy. 30% of the client base couldn't care, and they'll just spend the dollars. But
the other issue is, I think, in the U.S. market for the new entrants who do want to try Cubans. Firstly, obviously, it's very difficult to procure them. But in addition to that, if somebody wants to try a particular cigar, he has to end up buying a box. And I think the alternative is they can go into a retail store in the U.S. and pick up a single, or at least try 1 or 2 cigars of any of the New World. So I think the long-term ramifications of that, could be a different market in time to come, because the quality of the New Worlds has been improving day by day, and there's no question about that.
It's 10 years ago you would struggle to have a decent, outside the major brands, a decent NC under the over the a $10 decent NC. Now there's heaps. There's heaps. It's the market has changed dramatically, or the quality, the blending process has gone. And look, you still have all those private labels who go and order a private label from some of the majors, and there's only 6 blends, and you might have 100 private labels going and getting 6 blends, or going to a major manufacturer and they get given 1 or 6 blends, and that's their private label, and they're happy with that. There's no shortcut to real blending, and I do respect people who go out there and really spend the time to blending something that they love and taking it to their community, to their retail network in the US and get it done. But I don't think you guys realize how special you have it in the US in terms of the ability to walk into the vans and buy a stick, sit down and smoke it is almost unknown of in Asia and Europe.
Wow.
In terms of accessibility.
Wow.
It's almost unheard of.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That's insane.
And we were thinking we had it so good when we were in Cuba.
Oh yeah.
Bam Bam and I sat down at the best restaurants we were at. You're sitting there with your steak, you light up the cigar, and nobody even looks at you funny.
They were bringing Trinidad's around in one of the restaurants.
Yeah.
A box of them.
Amazing.
Just open.
Which one?
Yeah.
Esmeralda.
Esmeralda?
That's very good.
No less.
Yeah.
Did you take your black light? Yep.
I couldn't fit it in a luggage.
It's a good question, actually.
The other thing.
It's true.
The other thing too, Rob, that we've learned on the podcast here is that exactly to your point. So we came into this doing this, and we've all been loving Cuban cigars for the last few years, especially. And we came into this, and we alternate every week a Cuban, non-Cuban, right? and we were really anticipating that the Cubans were going to blow it out of the water. And not only have we had some really, like, we come in and, oh, what cigar we smoking today? We pull it out. Oh God, what's this going to be like? We've had some really crazy revelations
Big
about
surprises.
quality, like
Big surprises.
huge surprises. And actually, if you look at the data over the last 60 something episodes, Cuban and non-Cuban are like almost identical on the average rating. Neck and neck. Like everything I think is averaged out at like an 8.0.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah,
And you're rating too, Puba.
Yeah, you are.
And I'm rating
Yeah.
this?
You got to look at the
Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's on the website. But it's been a real revelation. The other point I wanted to make too, Rob, for listeners out there, to Pagoda's point about needing to buy boxes. Actually, the one thing I think is cool on 2424 is that you also offer quarter boxes and half boxes. So somebody who wants to try something without having to buy all 25, you can get 6 sticks or 12 sticks or whatever.
Split them with a mate and do that. But in terms of the biggest problem with NCs always was, or from an outsider looking in, because I used to love back in the 97, 98, 99, 96, 97, 98, 99. So I used to love the Tony Bahani cigars. Some of the stuff that Tony Bahani was doing was great. Some of those La Gloria Cabana Wavell Maduros that Ernesto was doing were superb cigars. But the minute they got popular and the minute the production had to increase to meet demand is the minute they all just, the quality went out the window. And it's one of the biggest, popularity comes with a curse. Yeah. You've got to be able to manage it in terms of production and maintaining discipline in what you're delivering. That's what I love about Padron so much is that if they don't have it, they don't sell it.
Consistency.
There's no shortcuts.
Yeah, the
There's no
consistency.
shortcuts. Yeah, if you're a retailer, well, then you have to wait until they're ready, which huge kudos.
I think what you just said there, Rob, is so important. I think the most underrated thing just about cigars generally is consistency. It's so underappreciated.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you have to have a scoring system for boxes of Cubans, in a perfect world, they would all be consistent. There would never even be a need for it. And the brands that do that better than others deserve all the credit in the world.
And Padron does that.
Top of the line. Yeah.
Padron does that.
Yep.
Their standards are so high.
The curse with Cuban cigars, for people who love Cuban cigars, is that it's a little bit like a golf shot, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know if you guys play golf, but you could be a hacker, and you could be scoring 109, and you hit that one shot, that one glorious shot that just goes this close to the pin, and you go home, and for the next week, all you think about that one glorious shot, not your scorecard, yeah, and it keeps you going back. And with Cuban cigars, we had a St. Louis Ray double Corona the other day with Kenny on one of our reviews. It was a 98, 99 point cigar.
Wow.
You just occasionally on a Cuban cigar, whether it be a D4 or an 898, you get a 97, 98 point cigar, 96, 97, 98, that just keeps you coming back. Because you know what? It's almost impossible to get that level of perfection. When you hit, it's hard to describe, but when you smoke it, you know it because you've all had it. It's just that one glorious piece of perfection that keeps you coming back.
Like a Vegas Rabena Classicos 2011.
That's the one, Rob.
There you go.
Speaking of, we only brought you on. We only invited you on to just bribe you and just ask, do you have any of those hidden around the warehouse that you can maybe
Great
sneak
question.
out the back door to
Great
us?
question.
Those Lonsdales, you have those?
It doesn't have to be a PSP box.
We don't need the sticker.
You guys would know. I've loved the Vega Rabena Classicos, but would I be wrong in saying that 30% of those were plugged?
No.
In those good years?
Not the 2011.
Not the 11s.
Not the 11.
The ones we
Not
have
the
have been
before
great.
that. No, the before that.
Before that.
No, they were.
Rooster's the only guy that would
before
know.
Yeah, you're
I have a
entering.
2001 box smoking great.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you. So that SLR, was that the Churchill that you smoked?
Double Corona.
Double Corona. What year?
AB Enero 07.
07.
Yeah.
I'm on Bond Roberts right now.
Get me a box, please.
Yeah, seriously. But the chase, it's you're talking about, you have that. There are these Cuban cigars that are so special, and these runs that laddering back to the runs you're talking about, and these runs and it is like a golf shot.
Yeah. My favorite Cahiba Robusto of all time. I still remember smoking on the balcony 15 years ago, and it was honey dripping with cream. I still remember. I can still taste it. Honey, it was the closest point to a 100-point cigar that I've had, and I still judge every Cahiba Robusto against that one moment, which is unfair. But it's that one moment that keeps reaching for a Cahiba Robusto just in case.
It's totally unfair, but who cares?
It is. Who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah. Who cares? But it is. And I don't find that. I just don't find a lot of 96, 97, 98 point NCs that I've come across yet. And I look forward to coming across those. I just don't get that magical shot that you get from Cuba. And mind you, it's I'm sure it's completely by accident out of Cuba. That actually just everything, all the stars and the moons aligned on the day to get it done. I don't think that's and Hamlet's very good. Like he says, blending with Cuban tobacco is the easiest thing in the world because the tobacco is smooth, rich, and sweet, and it's so easy to blend with. You don't really have to blend. Anyone can do it. It's not that difficult to do. And it's a puro, yeah. It gets. I love Nick blenders because it's far more of a challenge if you're a Nick blender.
Yeah.
To get that balance right because it's very. Yeah. There's not many Nicaraguan puros for a reason.
Right.
Yeah. You need to blend it out.
Need to blend it out. Yeah. It's strong.
So, guys, we're coming to the end of the Partagás Lusitania.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what everybody's thinking of this experience today.
It's amazing.
Fantastic smoke.
No issues here.
No burn issues. The draw is it's slightly little bit on the like a medium, like a little tight, but not bad. I kind of like it. It's not like completely open, but burning great flavor.
Yeah. I unfortunately had to put mine down. My wrapper exploded.
Oh,
so it was busted.
Yeah, my just to build on that, my wrapper exploded as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that.
Did you take the band off too early?
No.
Okay. I tried to take the band off to save it actually.
That you would save it with taking the band off, but it was very good all the way down until I just started having that issue.
Also very good.
So my wrapper exploded, as I said before, and it's still exploding here. But is it amazing?
You're still smoking it though.
Yeah. So we got 8 people here, and 3 have got construction issues from wrappers.
And this is about a $30 stick?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Plus, yeah. So that's what they got to get right.
We'll just have to use the Habanos money back guarantee, Rob. We'll just package these all up and send them in.
It would be paid in pesos. Yeah.
I'm going back to my Raz.
So, are you guys ready to do the formal Lizard rating on this thing?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Sure.
So, Rob, we're going to need a whole number from you, 0 through 10, and you can go last. Courtesy, you can go last.
Please.
All right, Rooster, you're up.
So I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm an
Mine
8.
didn't explode, so
No, I'm an
pretty
8.
happy with
It's everything that the cigar is and should be at where it is. But because of the construction issue, I give it an 8.
Okay. I'm going to give it a 9. Mine was delicious all the way down. No problems. I really enjoyed it. Senator?
This is tough for me because, Rob doesn't necessarily know this, but I'm obsessed with Partagás. It's easily my favorite brand. I love the Lusitanias, but I have to say, this was not as complex as other Lucies I've had, and I'm not sure why. I have a cabinet that's 2020, and I feel it's more complex than this. In the very final fourth, the wrapper also did explode on mine. So it pains me to do this because this cigar most days for me would be a 9, but I'm going to have to give it an 8.
I'm giving it an 8 as well. And for me, it did explode. I just smoked through it, and then it somehow just got back together. I really enjoyed the last third, more so than the middle. Enjoyed it in the beginning as well, but an 8 for me.
Okay, Grinder.
8.
8 for Grinder. And Rob, what's your rating?
And Bam Bam needs to.
Oh, I forgot Bam Bam. Rob, I forgot Bam Bam.
You see, Rob?
Sorry.
Did you see that, Rob?
I
Take
saw that.
notes. Take notes.
He's been very quiet, Rob.
I have. So I intentionally smoked this very slower than normal, because I wanted to really experience this whole cigar. I'm giving it a 9. I got a little bit of baking spice, a little salt. It was, for me, fantastic. And I'm taking this all the way down. 9 for me.
Awesome. All right, Rob, what's your number?
Yeah, solid 6. In that I smoke a fair few Lucy. This wasn't the best one. The roller had a tough day at the office on this one. They got the first half right. That sourdough, that sweet paprika mix. It was actually really nicely done, that first half. But then they screwed up the blend on the back end on this, and it just became hot and dirty, ashy. They lost interest. They screwed it up, and so they get a 6.
Ooh.
Tough grader.
That's a tough one, yeah.
Rob's a tough grader.
Wow, I like it.
All right, boys. The former Lizard rating on the Partagás Lusitanias is an 8.0.
Nice work.
Good
yeah,
score.
it's a good score.
So,
80-point cigar.
So, Rob, I wanted to ask you. Oh, sorry, Senator. Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, I mean, this goes back to the pursuit, right? Because I think all of us, Rob included, have had Lucy's that score much higher than this one.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was satisfying enough, but we're left wanting more. And we know that if you pursue these enough, you're going to find that magic one that's going to do the job.
Yeah, and I think that, I don't know, for me, that makes the Cuban cigar chase. We've talked about this, like Senator and Puba are really into wine. To me, it's kind of like that journey. Like, you're just chasing that thing. It makes it more intriguing that sometimes you hit and sometimes you don't. Or going back to the golf analogy, like, that's what makes Cuban cigars really interesting to me.
Agreed.
I don't know.
And
as I
for the
pursue it.
listener, when you hit, stock up. It's
Yeah.
just
Oh,
like
yeah.
wine. When you find that just perfect blend that year, just a good crop, you want to stock up by the caseload.
Great advice.
And it's the same thing with boxes of these.
Just call Rob; he'll get you a master crate.
I think that I think that when you blend a cigar and when you roll a cigar, and the NC world, because they roll cigars in pairs, someone does the bunching, someone does the wrapping. Your consistency is far better than the Cuban cigar world, where one girl does the entire, one woman does the entire thing. Yeah. So one guy does the bunching, one girl does the bunching in the Nicaraguan world, and they just seem to get it right, especially if you have small teams. So you got 10 pairs. You can actually maintain that consistency right. I'm a big believer on how a cigar should start, because you remember that. But also how it finishes is important. So if you screw up the finish of a cigar, you haven't done your job. You've got to blend that finish right. It can't be too overpowering. It's got to have a level of interest. It's got to have a level of integrity and DNA for that cigar. And this is why this one here didn't do it. They didn't blend the back end right, and they get a fail. Not a fail, but it was a good cigar. It wasn't great.
I got a question for you, Rob.
That's a very.
Are there any years that you avoid in Cuban cigars? Like, let's say the dark period. What's your opinion about that? Or 2017 maybe wasn't a great year. 2016, 2017. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I again, runs. So I can go back to my notes and tell you which ones to buy in 2017 months, which were great. But I mean, everyone knows that the late 1990s wasn't a special time. 2004 I thought was pretty ordinary. 16, 17, not their best of years generally. Just producing a lot of cigars, but Jesus, a lot of rubbish coming through it. I suppose Trinidad took that down too, yeah? I mean, Trinidad in those years weren't great. And there's always exceptions to the rule. People say, I bought a box of Fundadoras 2016, and that was brilliant. That's fine, and congratulations. But the reality is that there's a lot of rubbish produced at the same time, and it shouldn't be. Look, 2016, 17, yeah, I wouldn't be rushing out.
Right. So 2004, 2016, 2017, and obviously the dark period,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and the dark period. But again, there are plenty of exceptions. If you get the box for the right price, yeah, have a crack. But ooh, I wouldn't be putting my money down on too much there. To give you an idea, there's lots of 2016s. Are they H. Upmann Petit Coronas? Who's a H. Upmann Petit Corona fan?
We're big H.
You
Upmann
guys
fans.
smoke? Yeah. So again, the PC of 16. Again, my clients are completely divided on that cigar. Some love them, and a lot of them are H. Upmann Petit Corona fans, but they're not quite sure about that year of them. The 16 was a bit troubling. Not in all cigars, just some.
I have a D4. It's a 2016 box. It's phenomenal.
Same.
Yeah.
Smokes great. Yeah.
Yeah. Generally, they continually improved from 2005 on. And the biggest jump for me in improvement year on year was 2, 6, 7, and 8. They just went to another level in that. And they've been building since then.
I'm actually curious, along with what Rooster asked around certain years, are there Cuban marcas or brands that you would say fare better on the consistency front than others? We've talked about in the New World space, Padron being kind of the benchmark for consistency. Are there certain Cuban brands that you think odds are more times than not they're going to be consistent than others?
No.
No,
That's depressing.
it has to be Partagás.
Wait, no, but I got to ask a question. So, like,
Partagás.
Okay, so the Alphabet series in Partagás, couldn't you argue that maybe is more consistent than what Monty puts out?
So we were doing. Sorry, they were doing some. They're doing some BBF out of Partagás. It was about 2016. I think it's 2016, 17. Yeah, where you could squeeze every BBF that came out of Partagás. You could squeeze between thumb and forefinger and touch your fingers. Yeah, and we put in a complaint. We didn't. We filmed it and threw it through to PCC, and PCC looked it across to Habanos, and because we normally expect nothing to come back from that sort of complaint. But it turned out there's a massive little business going on where people just taking out filler to make their own cigars at home. Yeah, and that's
Wonderful.
What?
so they really cracked down. You know, we went through that period. I mean, that period of underfilling of cigars in 15, 16, 17. A lot of cigars were underfilled, and some people today will say they're underfilled, but this was nothing compared to what it was during that period of time. And it was a complete scam going internally. So, yeah, and that was through Partagás. Partagás is a good factory. Generally, Partagás does good cigars, but you're going to say they're the most consistent? Yeah, maybe. Look, they're up there, but I couldn't put them above El Laguito. I couldn't put them above La Corona. I mean, La Corona, the Bushido cigars, the Dip 2s that came out with those Bushido cigars, anything that was made at that period of time when Bushido came out, you can pick up a Dip 2 from that same period. Those Dip 2s are probably some of the greatest Dip 2s in history. I don't know why.
What period is that?
Yeah, what year is that?
What were we talking? I've had a mental block here. Are we talking 15? I'd have to double check there. But they are some of the best Dip 2s. Just look at the production period for Bushido and buy Dip 2s from that period. My God, I've never seen Dip 2s better prior to that or post that. And the smoking of it was stunning. So again, runs.
What is Bushido?
Diplomatico Bushido, which is a PCC regional release. I should be able to.
Yeah, we haven't had good luck with Dip 2s, so I'd love to have a Dip 2 that blew me away.
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened.
Yeah. Well, you know, Dip 2, and not everything that you buy or not every blend is going to resonate with your palate either. There are certain cigars that members speak volumes about, but I just don't get it. I just can't get. It took me years to get La Gloria Cabana Modelo number 2s. I went a decade. I couldn't understand what people were going on about.
We love that cigar.
Yeah, you love that cigar, yeah.
Yes.
There's something on my palate that doesn't get what you guys are getting, and that's fine. I'm just not wired that way.
We love the number
for it.
4,
Oh my God.
number 2, and the number 3.
They're incredible.
But it is a very different flavor profile. I mean, we
Yes.
talk about how
It's very
floral,
floral.
that cigar is. It's
Yeah.
very
Very
unique.
floral.
Yeah, it is.
Rob, when was the last time you saw MDO4s come up?
It'd be 2 years now, yeah. But I've seen them in Europe with 22 box code on the forum. Yes, I know they've
That's
been
good to
some
know.
in Europe. Again, this is depth of production. So someone's going to make, because basically they get a quota, yeah. The factory get a quota. You make 10,000 sticks or whatever it's going to be. Wait for the boxes to come in, send them out, and that doesn't mean they're going to be made again for another 12 months. And 10,000 sticks is nothing, yeah. So what's that? 800 boxes. So, and off they go around the world, and they come up on shelves, and people think they're back in stock, but the reality is no one's got another quota for production for another 12 months or 18 months. No one knows.
So it's sad. That's sad.
And that just happened with Sir Winston's too. Everybody was really excited that Sir Winston's were popping up, and there wasn't much out there.
No, yeah. It's loaves and fishes. Yeah, it's just pretend. Yeah, and gone. And we're seeing it across the board. There's just no depth to production outside of your Monty 2s, your D4s, your Monty 4s, your Monty 1s. They seem to have that in regular production, but outside of that, it's a classic shell game. Here it is, bang, and there it's gone, and it's not there next month.
Wow. So back to the Lusitania. One last question for you, Rob. What was the best Lusitania you've ever had?
Oh, Cabinet 2005 had the most beautiful Rosado wrappers that just looked like they were rubbed with Vaseline on them, but just Rosado, not dark, just red dirt wrappers, gorgeous. And I think I finished the last one of those 2 years ago, and the grade. I don't think I had anything less than a 96-point cigar out of that goddamn cabinet.
Wow.
And I love them.
All right,
But
so add
to
that to
me,
the Bond
it's
Roberts list.
it's my favorite wrapper. It's my favorite wrapper. I love a red wrapper. I love that Rosado, that proper red wrapper on a cigar. Thin, slight oil on it, and it just imparts a beautiful finishing touch to a cigar that's unique.
Sometimes you see them on the Partagás EL box,
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
the reddish brown wrapper. Beautiful.
yeah, and that's why the you see them on the also the Partagás E2s, and if you see a Rosado wrap on an E2, specifically if it comes from El Laguito, they had that beautiful run of El Laguito E2s for 2 years there, and majority were along those Rosado or Colorado Rosado wrappers, and they're still highly sought after because they're just exceptional cigars.
When we were at El Laguito last week, there was one of the rooms had
It was
finished boxes of E2s.
unbelievable.
There must have been 300 boxes just stacked full of.
And they won't leave the country for a year.
I have to say that particular cigar, even if you're not a fan of larger ring gauge cigars, that particular smoke is just outstanding.
It's outstanding.
Most of the time, especially with a little bit of age. It's
Oh, absolutely. I mean, kudos to them. Whoever blended that cigar, hats off. That was a remarkable blend. Whoever blended the Rio Seco, the Hoy de Moncho Rio Seco, forget the size of the cigar, forget the gauge, but what a unique cigar. And at their best, and they're fairly consistent, but it is, what a beautiful flavor profile. Anyone who can actually engineer a gingerbread type profile in a cigar and do it consistently, I think 10 out of 10.
You're singing my song now, Rob.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
So we got to get some of those too. Rooster has a big list for Bond Roberts tonight, Rob.
Enjoy.
Good luck.
All right, Rob, thank you so much for coming on tonight, man. We really appreciate your time and your insight and your support. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us for the pod tonight.
Fabulous conversation.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just great talking cigars with people who love cigars, and continue doing what you're doing. It's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
We need to do this again.
Yeah, when you come to New York, we'll do some NCs that maybe will get you close to the 98, 99 point NC. We have a couple for you that we want you to try.
Yeah, I love the journey. Yeah, it'll be messy. Good.
We're all for that.
All right, boys, and 8.0 tonight on the Partagás Lusitania. Again, Rob, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it, and hope you come on again soon.
Cheers, fellas. Take care.
All right, boys. We'll see you next week.
Keep smoking.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for joining us. You can find our merch store and ratings archive at our brand new website, loungelizardspod.com. That's loungelizardspod.com. Don't forget to leave us a rating and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any comments, questions, if you want to reach out, say hello, tell us what you're smoking, email us, hello@loungelizardspod.com. You can also find us on Instagram @loungelizardspod. We really appreciate your time, and we'll see you next week.